Welcome to the final instalment of our three-part series celebrating the naturally aspirated engine. Last time, Jonty sang the praise of Ferrari's last hurrah before going turbocharged for all of its V8 models, and the 458 Speciale will rightly be remembered as one of the greats. But if you want a mid-engine supercar with a wailing atmospheric engine right behind your ears, you need to head half an hour down the road from Modena. If any manufacturer would still be flying the flag of natural aspiration and good old-fashioned noise, who else but Lamborghini? The original Huracan was never hailed as the greatest driver's car, but the engine was so good that you could kind of forgive it. The new Evo retains that glorious V10, but it's also claimed to be a better car in every way. Oh, and this one is rear-wheel drive too.
So, can a load of the lessons learnt from the Performante and removing the front drivetrain finally turn the Huracan into a Lamborghini the keenest of drivers would choose over a Porsche, a Ferrari or even a McLaren? Let's find out, shall we? Like the original Huracan that came out 7 years ago, we have a 5.2 litre naturally aspirated V10 making 610 horsepower. That's 30 down on the Perf and the four-wheel drive Huracan EVO, but by removing the front drivetrain you also save 30 kilos. So once you've hooked up, I don't think you'll tell a jot of difference. And unlike all the modern turbocharged supercars, that power comes in at 8,000 RPM, so you're not just short shifting everywhere, you have to wind it out and bask in the noise. Now, noise and pace isn't exactly something the original Huracan was lacking in, but the steering was a little bit lifeless, and if you're like me, just being able to floor it whenever the hell you want gets a bit boring after a while. The Perf, that was much better. I really respected that car, but like a typical journo, I always gravitate more towards something rear-wheel drive. So I've been hoping that this might finally be the first Lambo I've driven that really is a bit of me. So far, I'd say that it is. The engine, as you'd expect, is the overwhelming thing. That steering that was a bit lifeless in the original Huracan, it isn't wriggling with feel, and it has the Lamborghini dynamic steering, which is very hyper alert. But without that front drivetrain, the wheels only have one job, so it's that little bit less corrupted. This one also has the optional carbon ceramic brakes, and as you'd expect, they really haul it down well. Unlike the older Lambos, they don't have that lack of anything at the top end and then a massive grab. They're much more progressive, like you'd expect from modern ceramics. One thing I really found about the original Huracan, it was really firm and quite skittish because of it. Now in Corsa mode, like we're in now, it is still very firm, but I just feel like it has a bit of extra compliancy to it. Like they've learned lessons throughout the car's life, which is quite a long life. It's been out for 7 years now. You can back it off into Sport and Strada if you want. But a Lambo's got to be driven in Corsa, hasn't it? Let's just enjoy the engine a bit more, shall we? The original Huracan was loud, and I expected this to be quite muted compared to it, because everything's got OPF filters these days, and even some supercars with those filters aren't that loud. Even the latest R8 with essentially the same engine, it's just not that loud, but this, when I first started it up, I couldn't believe it. And listen to it. I don't care how much power the latest stuff's got, tell me that is not what a supercar should sound like. You can barely hear yourself think in the cabin, which is not something you can say of most modern cars. I've mentioned the steering with the lack of the front drivetrain. What I haven't mentioned is traction. And actually it's remarkably good. You can just go flat in second gear if you want. And it'll move around a lot more than a normal Huracan, but it won't spit you off. It doesn't light up like a turbocharged car with that massive well of torque. It's a lot more manageable because it's got quite a progressive power curve. But what it means that I like is you just have to respect it more than a normal Huracan. You can't just get anywhere you want and floor it. You've got to get to know it and respect it a bit. But at the same time, it's drivable. So whilst the hyper alert steering, for me at least, might stop it being as much of a pure driver's car as something like a GT3, it is a massive improvement. It's something I'd actually buy. It's a proper thrill to drive. And because of that engine, that's a feature that trumps just about anything else you can buy today.
One of the biggest draws of the turbocharged crop of supercars is that they're just even faster. But I can't imagine anyone remotely sane driving this Huracan and feeling shortchanged for power. Plus, the more linear power band means it's easier to modulate how much of that power you actually want to use. With the way this thing sounds and the way the box changes, you can play that V10 like a musical instrument, no matter how fast you're going. And that's something so many modern cars forget. Drama is such a big reason so many people buy these cars, and whilst many have gone off in pursuit of even more outrageous performance, I'm glad that Lamborghini are still sticking with their flamboyant roots. There are still supercars with more, shall we say, delicate handling, and ones which cope with imperfect road surfaces better, and most are now even faster. But if you want a supercar for the theatre, it's hard to compete with a loud and proud atmospheric V10. Honestly, I would perfectly understand if you went out and bought one of these for the engine alone. And that's our point with this series. For us at least, no amount of turbocharged torque or engineered sound can quite match the razor-sharp response and all-consuming noise of a proper, naturally aspirated motor. There's no replacement for displacement, really is a saying for a reason. We hope you've enjoyed this mini-series celebrating some of the best naturally aspirated engines around. If you haven't seen the other episodes, do go back and check them out, and let us know in the comments below, which naturally aspirated engine do you think deserves celebrating?